Hello, Cortex Vortex listeners, and welcome back to The Vortex, where we talk about how neuroscience, philosophy, and cognitive science can help us better understand ourselves, people around us better, and teach us how to live our lives to the fullest extent. Today, I'm here with Professor Vera Tobin, who is a professor at Case Western Reserve University's Department of Cognitive Science. She has focuses in social cognition, viewpoint, joint attention, cognitive biases, and cognitive approaches to language and literature. Professor Tobin is also the author of Elements of Surprise, Our Mental Limits and Satisfactions of Plot. So without further ado, let's jump into the vortex. So Professor Tobin.
Hello.
So tell me a little bit about your book.
Sure. So my book is about surprises, particularly the kind of surprise where a story, a film, or a novel, or a short story, or a play sets you up in such a way that you have one sense of what's going on and what's happening and who people are. And there's a twist that is specifically the kind of twist where it pulls the rug out from under you. And it reveals that something else was going on all along. And it's kind of weird that stories can do this at all, because the only sense that you had of what was going on all along was what the story told you. So how is it that a story can tell you that one thing's going on and then tell you that something else is going on, and your response is not either this is incoherent, or this came out of nowhere, or this lied to me, but rather, oh, how silly of me, I didn't realize that this was what was happening all along. And so the book is about why we like that, and also how stories can manage it.
Mm-hmm. So you told me a little bit last time we spoke about Sixth Sense. So that kind of is a good example of this. So you want to explain that?
Yeah, sure. So Sixth Sense is a movie that has a really big, striking one of these. So I'll give you a little recap, and sorry for anybody in the audience.
Spoiler alert.
Definitely the thing about writing about these things is that you spoil stories for people all the time. Sorry. But this one's old enough, I think. So the setup of The Sixth Sense is the character that Bruce Willis is playing. You follow him at the beginning, and he is a child psychologist or adolescent psychologist, and he has a patient that you see just at the very beginning who has a breakdown and shoots the psychologist and then kills himself. And this is just the very prelude of the film, but this sets up the trouble that the Bruce Willis character will have all along, that he needs to redeem himself. And the bulk of the film is that he meets this child, Cole, who is also troubled, and he's helping Cole. And Cole's trouble, it transpires, is that he can see and hear dead people, ghosts, who are all around that only he can see and hear, and they're troubled, and he needs to figure out what's troubling them so that he can help them, so that he can be helped. And so it sets it all up with that you understand that the psychologist will help Cole, and in doing so, he will, be able to redeem himself for this. But then the big twist that comes very close to the end is it is revealed that, in fact, the psychologist is himself dead, and he is one of the dead people that only the child can see and hear. And of course, you, the audience, could also see and hear him, but everybody else that he has seemed to be interacting with all through the movie, he wasn't really. They couldn't see him. They couldn't hear him. His wife, Cole's parents, everybody else. And this also serves to help resolve Cole's problem, because we realize that what Cole needs to do is to help these dead people realize that they're dead, understand what they need to deal with, and then they can move on. But the reveal that the psychologist is a ghost is the big reveal, and that he has been one all along. Yeah. So it's this is crazy. That, yeah, how can you do this? How can you have it feel fair? How can you make this work? And it's a nice illustration of the different tricks that a story can play that capitalize on your inferential strategies, your inferential tactics, the way that you always are knitting things together in a story and capitalizing on the things that are enough below the level of your conscious attention that you're doing them, that your suspicions aren't aroused, right? They're just what you do all the time when you're making sense of a story. You have to make inferences, you have to put pieces together. And you're going to do it in various ways that will be biased in various predictable ways. And so you can be led down a garden path, but it's important that also all those things are sufficiently accessible to your conscious thought that when the reveal happens, they're available to you to undo. That you think, oh, yeah, that's on me. Oh, actually, oh, I was doing that.
Yeah. So the creators of these things, they understand that we are going to catch on to these little things that they sprinkle in along the way. And then when they finally pull the rug out, you're like, oh, that makes sense now.
That makes sense now. Oh, so it's crucial that they never, there's various lines that you can't cross as a storyteller when you're trying to do this, because you can't undo them, right? Like they're not defeasible as the technical terminology and like linguistic pragmatics has it, right? That you can't undo them. But it's predictable that you'll think certain ways. It's predictable that you'll lose track of certain things, but still be able to have you reminded of them. And they say, oh, yeah, oh, I see. That makes sense. Oh, I see. So, for example, there's very early in the film, right? He gets shot. You see him get shot. You see him fall down. You see his wife rush over. And then there's a transition and it says, next autumn or something.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So, and then you see him walking around. Well, you understand. You're like, oh, I see. I'm going to fill in the details I'm going to call on a frame that is familiar to me of like, oh, you're injured and then you recover and probably it took a long time to recover. But it doesn't tell you that he recovered.
Yeah.
Right. And it's part of the conventions of filmmaking that you don't have to show every piece of this. It doesn't arouse suspicion and it doesn't feel like cheap structural manipulation because it's a very standard way to structure those. But afterwards you could say like, oh yeah, I never did see any of that. It never did claim this.
Now I notice it kind of.
Yeah. And of course there's other things too, right? You need to have a viewpoint character who can see him to have it make sense that he's visible at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So other things like this as well, where the conventions get used but are undoable too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like that aha moment when all the pieces satisfyingly fall into place.
Yeah, and The Sixth Sense is a great example for this because it doesn't trust that you'll necessarily have that experience spontaneously, which is even better if you do. But in that moment, after it's revealed that he's dead, then you get a little montage of key moments from earlier in the film that you can now reinterpret. Oh. It's like, oh, that moment when he was talking to his wife and she wasn't answering him and you made sense and you thought that she was just like mad at him.
Yeah.
Because he was late to their dinner or whatever. Like now think back on it, you realize that she never makes eye contact with him.
Because you
get a little
him.
montage of this so that you can to ensure both. It's like, okay, we were playing fair. This is important to us. Like because otherwise you just feel
like played.
Yeah. But also to be like, there's pieces here that all fit together and they fit together satisfyingly, and so they go like, oh, that's great. Yeah.
So it kind of plays on that. Last time we talked about like kind of the iceberg.
Right.
So it plays on that level right below. So want to tell us a little bit about that?
Exactly. So this is the part of cognition that I'm really most interested in. Yeah, lots of people, one way or another, are sort of, there's a lot of bad feelings that we have culturally about things that happen below the level of our conscious attention, and especially things where there's like automatic reasoning, things that we aren't aware of, like, oh, like that's not my rational self, worries about cognitive biases and so on. But of course, it's really important, as I was telling you earlier, it's really important that lots and lots of stuff happens below the level of our conscious attention, because it frees up the relatively limited time and resources that we have for thinking in complex ways about what's happening, to have lots of it handled more swiftly and more heuristically than rationally.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good news that lots of that stuff is happening below the level of our conscious attention. But what's really interesting is that some stuff is just very fundamentally, deeply below the level of our conscious attention. But the stuff that's at this, right, so you've got this huge iceberg, and then fortunately, then you have the tip of the iceberg that's above the surface of the water where you can, contemplate things and think about things carefully and slowly and attentively. But just below the surface, there are lots of things that under normal circumstances, they do march along without needing our conscious attention and without rising to the level of our conscious attention. But they're not so far below the surface that there's no hope of noticing them.
Yeah.
Or that you would need to go back and see a transcript of what you had done. They're there, they're available to exploit in the circumstance.
Yes.
Right. And so one of the things that's very interesting to me about stories, we like to look at this layer because it's accessible. It gives us the opportunity to find out a lot about what the mechanisms actually are that are driving our behavior, that are driving our thoughts, that are helping us to navigate the huge barrage of information that actually it's astonishing, right? It's so partial.
Yeah.
So overwhelming that it needs to be.
We need to be able to have that unintentional stuff.
But then how do we find out what it is? And so, one way you can find out is you set up little circumstances that expose, right? You set up experiments, you set up tasks where you expose the places where the mechanism is exposed, where the mechanism doesn't behave quite right, and that shows us what's happening, right? But what's interesting to me about stuff that I study when I look at this kind of storytelling, when I look at the kinds of jokes and banter and playfulness that people do in behavior, the fact is that we also, not just through experiments, but in the things that we construct for each other and the games that we play with each other and the challenges that we produce for each other, we ourselves pick up on the fact that these structures are latent in the environment and we capitalize on it, and bringing them to one another's attention produces these delightful effects and also is very informative about what's going on. That layer where it can pop up, right? The surface dwelling creatures can sometimes pop up out of the water. That is really fascinating to me.
So we're able to just kind of pull the strings of the system a little bit and see how they are working, because it's so far close to the surface when you think about an iceberg.
And taking advantage of the fact that it was below the surface, right? Something was happening when you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
And then it's available for you to see oh, that's me. Oh, I was thinking that. I did that. It was me, but I didn't notice. And so you can have this thrilling reveal. And it also is scientifically interesting. Because that's how we find out about this interface between what we're consciously aware of, our conscious reasoning processes, the conceptual structures that are available to us readily, and the ones that are below the surface, and how they got there. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So when I think about these, this, at least, let's put it in terms of the media, current media, we have this sudden emphasis on being very intentional with everything we do.
Yes.
You kind of touched back on this a little bit earlier, but almost we shouldn't be this intentional. We should allow these things to take course so that we can save that energy for the more important things.
It's really not available.
Yeah.
Right? It's just not possible. If you were trying to attend to all of these things in real time,
there's not enough time.
There's not, right. You don't, if you had to decide consciously every phoneme that you were stitching together to say a word, to say a phrase, to say an expression, if you had to think even more a lower level than that about exactly where your tongue goes and exactly what you're aspirating,
you would go crazy.
Make those all as conscious decisions, it would just, you couldn't possibly do it in the amount of time that it takes to put together a sentence. There would be no sentence. There would just be you very carefully and deliberately emitting a series of sounds, and you would be able to produce one word in the amount of time that it would take us to have several turns of our conversation, and various things about the timing of our conversation and other stuff. It's key that you can support all of that below the level of conscious attention, so that you can think about what you want to say or what it meant or what the other person is doing or what they want. So there's like valorization of attentiveness and deliberateness sometimes really misses the forest for the trees, right? Because you do have limited resources for attentive capacity, and you are cutting yourself off from many fabulous things that your mind can do and will do anyway by attempting to short circuit that. If you like are think that there's something kind of morally defective or otherwise defective about these processes that take place below the level of attention. In fact, lots of them work much more fluently than anything that you could do.
It's miraculous.
Right, it's miraculous, and it's extremely effective. And the fact is that just because these things take place below the level of your conscious attention doesn't mean that they're never accessible to you. It's the other thing to kind of remember. Like, you don't have to short circuit your systems for heuristic inferencing, for rapid construction of behaviors and doing lots and lots of stuff without your conscious attention. Doesn't mean that it wasn't you. It doesn't mean that it was malformed, and it doesn't mean that it's never going to be accessible to you.
Yeah. And that below the iceberg, the fact that we can even study that and see the differences between that tells us that it's still a part of us. It's still that accessible.
Exactly. And the fact is that that we really love when things kind of pop up from that level.
It's satisfying.
It's so satisfying.
Yeah.
It's really delightful. And one of the, many of the most delightful experiences are ones where something that you did at that level, something that happened at that level, then does pop up. That crossing of the boundary is itself just incredibly thrilling. So we can talk more about the examples of storytelling, and I think we should, but an example that comes up is if you're solving a puzzle, or you're doing like a trivia, like pub trivia or something, you're taking a test, something, and you're like, oh, I almost know this. I don't know. Do I know this? And then it pops into your mind.
It pops above the surface.
Apparently I do know that. I don't know how.
It gives us trust in ourselves a little.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's in many ways much more satisfying and delightful
than those consciously knowing it.
Okay, wait. Not that there's anything wrong with the other way, but there is so exciting, these moments that we often talk about in the terminology of cognitive psychology is the insight experience or an aha experience. But what it really is when the pieces came together below in that layer, that below the surface layer, and then popped up. It's wonderful. It's part of me.
I knew it.
Right. I knew it, and I didn't even know it. It's just incredibly enjoyable. It's charming. It has this charm, and it's an important part of human experience.
Yeah.
It's really joyful. Yeah.
So it's really cool that these authors, these filmmakers are able to kind of bring that out in us. Yeah,
to construct it. I think this is so wonderful. I mean, this is part of why I really love to study all of these examples, is that a wonderful thing about human beings is that not only do we experience these things, but we construct them. We're able to construct them for one another. And just by capitalizing on things that in other circumstances, sometimes people will characterize as weaknesses or shortcuts or flaws or defects or other things about our thinking, but predictable pathways of our thinking, capitalizing on them, not to just to fool you, or to trick you, or to undermine you or lead you astray, but instead to prepare for you these experiences,
to have that aha
moments, these joyful experiences. And I think the more we recognize how wonderful those are and how much we learn from them, the more we can also deliberately build them into our own lives and the things that we do for one another.
Yeah. So we think exploitation is the word that we use around this. And I think it gets a bad rap a lot of times because people think you're taking advantage of something. Yeah. But it can actually be used to leverage something, is what you're trying to say, right?
Right. That there's resources in the way that we are that we can exploit for each other, that we can use as resources to build experiences for each other and for ourselves.
Okay, yeah. So in terms of like our day-to-day lives and how we do this for each other, maybe not even consciously all the time, could you like give us like some examples maybe of that?
Yeah, well, I think, in ordinary life, just like, sort of conversational, spontaneous life, we do this for each other a lot with just like little playful games that we do with one another, with, banter and wordplay and games like flirting and so on, but also simply structures like attempting to walk somebody through something, right? Like when you're like helping your friend study for something, you're like, what would be like the best way to help you remember this? What would be the best way for us to study this? You can have experiences where, okay, like let's walk through, like, I think you do know how to do this. I think you do know how to experience this. And this is actually connects up with something that I think is really wonderful to think about in this context, which I think it isn't often thought about in this context, which is, so in the history of the study of cognitive development, there was Lev Vygotsky. I don't know if you've ever read about him, but so he was a scholar of developmental psychology and childhood learning, who, among the many things that he pointed out, he talked a lot about how learning takes place in social settings. But one of his insights that I find like perpetually fascinating is he talked about the idea of the zone of proximal development. So this is where it's helpful to teach people things, and it's helpful to have them do things with what we call scaffolding, like that I'll help you do this, and you're doing it partially yourself and partially with help, and then okay. So the zone of proximal development is the stuff that's just beyond your current capacity, stuff that you haven't done fluently yet, where you want to study, it's where you want to teach children, it's where you want to challenge yourself, because that's where you can learn things. And then it's also, when you put this together with these insights about joyful insights and having that experience of these things fit together and the significance of them becomes clear to me in this moment, how these things fit together, the meaning of this, or the fact that I know this, or the fact that actually, I didn't even realize it, but now I can do this. All of these things that were at that layer are available for us. If you help people do things or help yourself do things, set challenges for yourself and others that are in this zone of proximal development, then you have that opportunity.
Yeah.
We're like, I can. I do know. I do see how these fit together. And like, a thing that's incredibly charming about people is that actually this is one of the most reliable sources of pleasure that we have. It's not uncharming. They're like, a delicious meal makes us happy.
Yeah.
These kinds of sensory pleasures make us happy. But I think it is just incredibly endearing of people that actually you can really count on that kind of fundamentally
from yourself,
intellectual pleasure, right? And something from yourself of discovering that you understand something and having it rise to the level of your conscious awareness, that understanding that this is an incredibly satisfying, thrilling source of pleasure for us, I think is just, it's wonderful.
Definitely.
That's so nice about people.
Definitely.
that we really love this.
Yeah.
Experience.
I know, like, when I'm studying with my friends, especially in like classes like biology and stuff, we have all these systems going on in our bodies, of course, and my friends will talk me through a system and suddenly the pieces fit together because it's a system that we've already learned before in different contexts.
Yes. This is like my favorite thing too. I love this with teaching, right? Where something that from the beginning of the semester or something from some other class, when you encounter it again and suddenly you realize that stuff that you learned before and you were sort of like, I don't know, like, did I learn it? Did it fit in? You're like, I still do know it, and now I understand it much better.
Yeah.
It all makes sense in retrospect.
And you see the big picture.
That retrospective sense making is like,
definitely. Definitely.
Like, it was all there, like, latent in my understanding, and now it's snapped together in my understanding.
So I think that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for coming on. And I hope my listeners have a chance to have some satisfying surprises up in the near future. But thank you for tuning into Cortex Vortex, and I hope to see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks.